spirit of this revolution is not going away.
This is the Ron Paul Liberty Report with Ron Paul, Daniel McAdams, and Chris Rossini.
We are all ambassadors of the Ron Paul doctrine, and it's so simple. Just tell the truth.
An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.
For tuning into the Liberty Report. With us today, we have Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you this
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well.
All right.
How is the Republic doing this morning?
So-so.
Okay. Well, we still have a republic theoretically, but I don't think we have a true republic. Not quite. But anyway, we want to talk about somebody who got frustrated, with the Republican Party. And I've known this gentleman for a good while.
Yep.
I knew him when he was a Republican at the time, but he wasn't a super diehard Republican. And I really understood at the very beginning he was feeling his way. But he became much more well-known than I was and am. And he now has come to the conclusion, he says, I'm out of here. Yeah. And that, of course, is Tucker. Yeah. Tucker Carlson says he's out of the Republican Party. He's not going to work with them or do anything. But I'm sure he'll work with individuals who might still be doing a little bit of communications with the Republican Party. But he, for himself, he was not bashful about it. He was very blunt. And I think we should take him at his word that he's not going to be running for a Republican office. That would be my assumption. But who knows? Lots of different things happen. But, it's and you can just, what we want to deal with today is more or less the frustration he's feeling, and that may have prompted this, that would be similar to maybe yours and my feelings, maybe to other people's feelings, because with him able to tap into the sensitivities of all the politics going on in the Republican Party, especially, his decision is a big deal. And there's a lot of people who listen to him. Yes. And they pay attention. But he made the decision, and there's a lot of talk about it. And you know what? What my first thought was, well, who cares? The founders didn't even think we should have political parties, exactly. But it was a natural instinct for people. So even if you have political parties, you don't have a unique and perfect Republican Party and Democratic parties, and they represent ideals. No, there's a little disruption to show that the political party system isn't so great because they're fighting among themselves. But Daniel, to simplify my opinion about that rather quickly, I think when a country goes bankrupt, you have to find out why are they bankrupt. And I believe our country is morally bankrupt and financially bankrupt, and that's where the chaos is coming, and everybody is struggling. I think the people are way ahead of the Congress. I've always argued that they're way ahead of the Congress, especially on these war issues. And this, of course, we should be grateful that we have at least some of our freedoms to speak out. But of course, we have to be concerned about that. And one of the reasons why a lot of people are unhappy and are very cautious, because the right to speak out is being challenged by our government in various ways. So I'll be interested in continue to follow along with Tucker Carlson, because we'll probably be hearing from him as much, if not more than ever.
And the interesting thing about Tucker Carlson, in a way, is that he's sort of gone the entire route of the GOP, because, as you point out, he was prominent on television, on Fox News. That was later on, MSNBC. But also, let's not forget, he was the golden boy of the Weekly Standard when Bill Kristol started this magazine in the 90s. It was going to be a new conservative movement, a new conservative magazine. And I remember I rushed out to buy the first issue. I didn't understand the fault lines in U.S. politics. In fact, I wasn't living in the country at the time. I rushed to get that first issue, and I read a couple of the other issues. Well, Tucker was big on that, but that was Bill Kristol. Those were the neocons. And so he sort of fooled around and played around in their tank for a while. And then he went on to form the Daily Caller, which was a little bit better than the neocon Weekly Standard. They had a little bit broader of a view, but they still had a lot of neocons. In fact, when we launched the Ron Paul Institute, one of the most vicious attacks against us came from a Daily Caller writer, which is interesting. But now he's gone full circle, and he said on a recent show, "I'm done. I'm out of here. Let's put on that clip." This is Axios' write-up of it, just because it's convenient. "I'm out." Tucker Carlson says he's done with the GOP. Now let's actually listen in his own words. Let Tucker Carlson explain why he's out. Let's listen to this whole first clip where he explains, I think, pretty well why he's had it. He's fed up with the party.
There's no chance I would support I would not support the Republican Party. There's no chance I would support the Republican Party. I'm not going to support the Democratic Party. I don't know what I'm going to do. But at this point, how could I or any American voter support a political party that's not loyal to the United States, that puts the interests of a foreign country above those of its own citizens? It's not possible to vote for people like that, and I'm not going to.
I don't think we're getting any volume through
I've voted
in this.
Republican my entire life.
Can we just pause it for a second and double check that volume, because Dr. Paul's not getting any volume on this, and I think it's important to hear what he has to say in this. Let's just go ahead and replay it now, and when we get a chance to do that, and hear what Tucker is saying himself. If we can get this thing working, give it another shot. Live program. This always happens that way. Let's rewind this and go ahead and put your earpiece back in, Dr. Paul, so we can see.
I would not support the Republican
Hold on
Party.
a second. Let him get it in.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Let's try it again.
I would support the Republican Party. I'm not going to support the Democratic Party. I don't know what I'm going to do. But at this point, how could I or any American voter support a political party that's not loyal to the United States, that puts the interests of a foreign country above those of its own citizens? It's not possible to vote for people like that, and I'm not going to. And I think I've voted Republican my entire life. I worked at Fox News, CNN, right. MSNBC. I've been a consistent defender for 35 years of the Republican Party. I mean, very consistent defender. But there's no defending this, because it's immoral, and it's exactly the opposite of what a political party in a democracy is charged with doing, which is representing its own voters, its own citizens, its own nation, and they're not doing that. So, no, I'm out. And if I'm out, then I think a lot of other people are out. I would not support.
Yeah, that's a good point. If I'm out, a lot of other people are out.
Boy, that's for sure. I believe that.
And his main complaint here, and I think he probably could expand upon this, but that the Republican Party just doesn't seem to care about the United States anymore. They consistently putting another country in front of their own.
Yeah, I think all these things that we talk about are a sign that something happened, spiritually, morally, constitutionally, and it is the grasping of and a dedication to seeking and finding the truth. And because the larger a political party gets, and the bigger our responsibilities that they assume to run the world, and you have an empire, and then you're working on a bankruptcy, they get worried. There's concern about it. So people get doubtful, but they can get by lying and fibbing for a long time. And I think that as long as I can remember, there was something. Oh yeah, that's true, but no, you can't listen to that. And I think that, even the episodes that went on in the 1963s with the assassinations and all, was a guarantee to me that you really can't trust the government. You can trust some people in there, and some do the best they can, but it seems like some of the very good people that go and they have these same goals that I'm talking about, they end up changing them because there's this temptation, which I was able to witness at times. People would come with good intentions and they want to, pursue, reforms, but at the same time, they get engulfed. As soon as a new member comes to Congress who is dedicated to the Constitution, the senior members work on it, and they say, okay, we're going to help you get reelected. What committee you want to be on? Okay, you have to do this and that. So the system has deteriorated, and the money has deteriorated. The country is broke, and yet they never seem to stop. And I think you already mentioned this whole idea about sovereignty. Why? And Tucker mentioned it too. Why are we doing things that are damaging to ourselves and are supposedly helping the others? But I don't think it helps anybody. I mean, you take the relationship we've had with the countries in the Middle East, in particular Israel. Some people say, well, you have to do it. You even have a religious obligation. You have to do this, for Israel. But I've worked on the assumption that it doesn't really help the people who are supposed to be helped. It certainly doesn't help the people who have to pay for it. And it certainly doesn't help the people who lose their civil liberties. It doesn't help the people who have to march off to war with a policy designed to be an interventionist, maintaining an empire. And of course, in the 60s, we had the tragedy of the Vietnam War, woke up a few people, but then they came along, and we have to get rid of this Vietnam syndrome of being cautious and staying out of world affairs. And they finally said, "Oh, we'll have a win in the Middle East, and that'll do the trick." That just made all our problems sort. I think we've lost our way because we don't have a target. The founders had a pretty darn good target when they were willing to put on the line their life and their possessions to develop a nation and promote a nation that emphasized these things that we're complaining about that we don't have any longer.
And I think the reason we're talking about, one of the reasons, it's not just Tucker, it's not just foreign policy, but I think, and we talked about it before the show, in your office, we're in an era right now where the political fault lines are breaking in ways that are unexpected. Now, the word you used when we were talking earlier was political chaos, and I think that's an appropriate and accurate description of what we're in right now. You also mentioned we have a philosophical chaos, a philosophical bankruptcy in our politics in America. We have an intellectual bankruptcy, an intellectual chaos in politics in America. And I think I'm taking words out of your mouth, but I remember them because they were important. I think the point that you said, the example you gave was Speaker Johnson, when they had sort of they didn't know what to do about a particular topic. He said, well, I don't know, let's just go ask Trump to fix it for us, Right. So there's just no guiding principle. And I think, although Tucker in that clip only talked about foreign policy, now probably was talking about Israel, but you could also talk about the favorite hobby of the Democrats, which is Ukraine. The same thing. They would be just as happy to put Ukraine first and Israel first. And so what you're looking at, what Tucker has done, and a few others, and I have some clips of others, there's a new sort of, and I think, intellectual ferment that is sort of in his cauldron boiling up, and it's in opposition to the traditional Republican and Democratic parties.
I think this is very important that you're emphasizing here is understanding the chaos, because it is a deliberate goal of Marxism. They're not bashful about it. And even though they might even admit, I've read, Marxists and socialists say, yeah, we know things aren't as bad as we say, but it's going to get worse, and that we have to be prepared. But it's a tool we can use to bring on this marvelous thing called Marxism, and they do this, and so they've achieved a lot. There's a lot of Marxist ideas now we're electing outright. People who, it used to be that socialists. Somebody said, boy, this is the first time we've had a socialist elected election, a major election for New York, like New York City. But I tell you what, we've been electing those people philosophically who are, in there playing their mischief, trying to develop people's, acceptance, of a collectivist society. But it is that the chaos is there. It is something to say. We're seeing statistics, young people even now that we brag about because they're coming our way to a large degree, and also, but they're looking at the socialists as well. So this chaos. But I'm always looking for the opening. And if there is chaos and there is failure, and I think we have benefited somewhat for this, and I think Trump has participated to a degree, and that is, this system is so bad. Why don't you try something new? Why don't you try freedom? And the system comes from authoritarianism. It comes from the ruthlessness of authoritarians wanting to regulate the economy, send the kids overseas to fight wars we don't want, throw away the Constitution, punish the people who follow the Constitution, punish the people who say, well, that's my oath of office. That's what I took. So I think there is an opening. Matter of fact, I think it has benefited us to a degree. People are, but we also have the big picture of a lot of people saying, yes, the Marxists want to move in, and they're not going to lie low and fail to take care of it, to take advantage of this problem that we have.
And the authoritarians on the other side too. It seems apparent now that the two major political parties in the U.S. are really in the dustbin of history.
Aye.
They're completely clueless. Neither of them. There really is nothing between them. It's the uniparty, as you mentioned this week. It seems like there are different polls developing. Now, there's a sort of the Tucker poll, for lack of better term. Now, you could put people in there like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie, and a few others in that poll. And then you sort of have the Trump poll, because despite the fact that the old line Republicans pretend to be MAGA, he has, I think, discerned a separate sort of intellectual movement, as haphazard as it is, that it's a different poll than traditional R&D. And then, as you point out, Mondani, the Democratic Socialists, are also forming a new poll that's outside of their Democratic Party. So you're seeing these different things develop, and I think it's who knows what may come of it, but nevertheless, it's an interesting ferment. And in fact, if you put on Marjorie Taylor Greene this clip of her, it's not a video, it's just a post. She said, Tucker is not the only one who's done supporting the Republican Party. There are a lot of us that are absolutely fed up and will not support a party that betrays its voters and country. That does not mean we are turning into Democrats either, but we are done with the America Last Republican Party. Now, Thomas Massie chimes in on X as well, not exactly related to Tucker's comment, but he makes a very good point about why he is also, at least in some ways, done. If you go to that next clip here, Thomas Massie says, the irony of Republicans controlling all branches of government while bankrupting the country, starting a war, sending money to fraudulent programs, violating the Constitution, giving corporations immunity, but arguing that the biggest problem we have is stolen elections. So I think he absolutely captures their what is wrong. And it's not just, and I think what Massey's saying, Dr. Paul, is it's not just putting another country first. It's completely bankrupting the country financially, intellectually, morally.
The proposal by many people who are very frustrated, and people I'm sure are asking the question now, what should somebody like Tucker do? Start a new party, have a new political party? They'll be asking questions like that. My frustration came on pretty early when I was really discovering, what was going on in Washington, and therefore I actually left Congress rather early because I could see what was going on. And I went back into medicine. But I also wanted to participate, and I worked with a new party, considered in a way, and that's the Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
And so I had a little experience with that. But and if somebody comes, if Tucker announces tomorrow that he has 25 really well-known people say we're starting this new party, I'd be saying, hey, great, this is good. But I'm also hesitant to say that's where the answer is, because it's been, how many new parties have we had? Sometimes the coalitions and coming together, they give up on their more controversial truth seeking when they're telling the truth. Oh, that's too hard to handle, so why don't you give a little on each one? I find that some of these coalitions, they give up the good stuff and they try to come together on the fluffy stuff. And that's one of the reasons that it doesn't work. But see, I'm all for this, I think, but I see it as a way to reach people. And in a way, I have reached a couple more people than I ever dreamed of, not because I was a professor and trying to teach people something, but I had a burning desire to try to explain to people right now. My big goal on economics is why are we having these problems? Why are the prices going up? Everybody says, well, we can't afford these there's no affordability, but they don't come up and say, well, we spent too much money, we're printing too much money, and we have a bad foreign policy. And they have to hone in on that. And I think more and more people, that's where we claim there is some success in people moving in that direction. But I think it's really necessary that they do it, because the founders got themselves into this predicament, and they said that they probably had people understanding what the revolution was going to be all about, but I don't think we even have to. I don't believe in promoting violent revolution.
Sure.
But I strongly believe that we can't settle this whole thing. Yes, political parties, change them, change what we have, start a new one, whatever, but it has to hone in on the principles. One is that politicians shouldn't be given any credit if they lie to the people. And boy, what if you had a litmus test and what if AI knew who told lies in Washington? They might come up with a big list.
Yeah. Maybe because, they have that cuts jar. If you use a bad word, they should have a lie jar. You got to put money in the lie jar. It would have to be a big, big jar. But, I think I chose a couple of examples of the absolute paucity of an intellectual debate in our political system. Now, the first won't surprise you. It's Ted Cruz. So Ted Cruz's response to Tucker Carlson saying the party is intellectually bankrupt. It's not pro-America. Instead of Ted Cruz offering a response, an intellectual response, saying, well, actually, no, here's what Ted Cruz does. Put that next clip up. This is literally like you're in sixth grade. This has been obvious for some time. Tucker Carlson hates Trump, Republicans, Israel, Christian Zionists, and you. Tucker loves Qatar, the Ayatollah, anti-Semite crackpots, shirtless Putin, Sharia law. So there you have Ted Cruz. That's his intellectual level. It really is like flinging feces, like monkeys at a zoo flinging feces. So that, I think, really makes the case for Tucker Carlson.
Yes, and but maybe they have to start thinking about Cruz like they start thinking about that other senator that had to go home, or is getting on his way home.
Later, dude.
So that's good. But I want to sort of finish up on trying to narrow this thing down where the problem comes from, because I think there is a conflict, and we can divide them. They're not neat categories, but I think that there are some people who are honestly dedicated to seeking out the truth, understanding. You could have people in science that are, maybe their only thing is seeking out the truth about science, and yet we do end up finding people telling lies about vaccines and other things. But to dedicate a lot to truth, no matter what you're doing, and in politics, is finding people that level with us and not pasted over, painted over, where you can accept these wars, and that's how these wars. I think especially since World War II, all the fighting and the killing and the money has all been based on pure lying, but a lot of innocent people being brought into it because it's patriotic and it's dangerous, and we're going on, but they won't admit that we've lost our way, and certainly the setup has to occur with a little bit more, like a lot more honesty in the monetary system, because history is so strongly on the side of our argument that when the country is failing, they will always opt in for just printing more money all the way back to Roman times. That's what they did. So that's happening, and I think it should be recognized that there are people who literally, they don't just fib, they don't just tell white lies or make mistakes. They have a belief, a philosophic belief. You guys are wasting your time.
Yeah.
You can't define truth. You don't know where truth is. Why are you wasting your time? So what you need are smart people to go to Washington and take care of us. And then if you're doing well, take care of the world. And that's where we've drifted to. So I want more people to think about seeking the truth and just forget about, accepting the idea that we have to accept the people who are lying to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to close out, and I do want to say that I think some of these themes we're going to explore in September when we go to D.C. It'll be our 10th annual DC conference, and I don't have tickets on sale yet. They will be on sale this week, but do mark your calendar for the 5th of September, because we will be talking about these issues, and you never know, we may even have some of the people who are in the center of the storm joining us to give a talk, and you're going to want to hear them and meet them up close and personal. So do mark that calendar for September the 5th. More info is coming soon. I've been ill and I'm a little bit behind, but we will get things going pretty soon, and we thank you for joining the show. Over to you, Dr. Paul.
Very good. And I want to close by thanking our viewers for tuning in today and encourage them to spread the word and spread the message of liberty. And I think that is so important that we do that, because otherwise, you just stop spreading the message. But I think it's been working very, very well, and I believe that it will make a difference if we continue with this. And I want to close by congratulating Tucker, for what he's done, and it was a clear-cut message. He didn't mince words, and so I like what he's saying. So I congratulate Tucker, and I wish him well. And also wish our viewers well for being with us in this issue of liberty. And please come back to the Liberty Report soon.
Thanks for watching the Ron Paul Liberty Report. Like and subscribe to help spread the message. And until next time, live free.